conceiving for 1 year, it is a couple's thing. We're excessively drinking, we're excessively smoking. There's this new habit of taking shisha and bangi and mira. Yeah. And all those affect the quality of our sperm. It's a caution to women. As we grow older, we get our eggs decrease in number. It is really, really a big burden on self, especially if you've been trying for a long time and haven't been able, or even for couples who we don't have a problem and you don't find a problem yet they're not conceiving. I think those couples take it harder. I think we should stop blaming the woman. It is a couple problem, and even if we find that one of you has a more serious problem than all, it's still a couple problem. We don't always have success, and that's not possible to always have success, but through it we want to journey with you and ensure that whatever outcome we get, you stay strong as a couple.
It's hard to wait around for something that may never be, but it's harder to let go when it's everything you have ever wanted. Well, today on My Journey, in our continuing series on human interactions, I host Dr. Wanjiru Ndegwa-Njuguna, founder and director, Footsteps to Fertility Centre, who is going to help us highlight fertility problems and their impact on families. So thank you very much, Doctor. So we are about to get into a very touchy topic. But before we do, I would like us to lay a foundation for our viewers. So would you kindly share with us the clinical definition of infertility and help us define between primary infertility and secondary infertility?
Okay, thanks. So infertility, or like I like to say subfertility, is the inability to conceive over a period of 1 year if you have been living with your partner, meaning that you're together and have regular intercourse, which we say is 2 to 3 times a week. So that if by 1 year you've not been able to conceive, we do think that there is a problem, and therefore we state that it's subfertility. Yeah? But some people go on to be actually conceive in the next 3 months. So that's why we say it's not infertility, because infertility is a bit definite. And when we talk about primary and secondary, primary infertility is where the client has never conceived. So the woman has never had a pregnancy, be it a miscarriage, be it an ectopic. This is, she's never been able to get actual conception. And secondary infertility is where we have had a baby probably, or we've had a miscarriage, or we've had an ectopic pregnancy, but after that we're not able to conceive within the 1 year period.
So this is the very problem that your clinic provides solutions to. So what motivated you to guide couples' footsteps to fertility, given that this is a topic that is considered a taboo in most cultures?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is an area that is really stigmatized in our society, especially and in the African context. And I think I found my passion in fertility. As I was doing my postgraduate at Kenyatta, I used to do locums for one of my senior gynecologist who had an interest in fertility. And I came across many patients who were struggling, who had despaired, some who were in depression, and mostly women who would come alone and had many problems of separation, divorce, family problems. So it just spoke to me. And I knew that I had to help these women and help these couples, because I did find men who also accompanied their wives and help them. And the very need to have a child is it's such an integral part of our society. I mean, it's a propagation. It's what we were created for. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it was my calling, and I'm very passionate about it, and it's where I'm happiest, to be honest.
And that's really great that you decided to follow your passion. So infertility, despite being majorly considered as a woman's issue across the globe, it also afflicts either gender. So would you kindly take us through the causes of both primary infertility and secondary infertility in both men and women? Maybe you can start with men.
Men. Okay, why men? But no problem. Okay. So the causes are vast, and I like that you have recognized that it is men and it is women. It's a couple thing, and that's the most important thing I try to stress. We're not conceiving for 1 year, it is a couple's thing. So I'll just go to the men before I get to the women. Men, usually it's very easy to find out whether a man is not able to conceive, because all we need is a semen sample, which they produce, and in 30 minutes we can tell you what the problem is. And for men, there are many problems. The most common is that there's a genetic issue, and therefore some men have no sperm, and that is something that just came with the genes, that they miss some chromosomes to produce sperm, and that's there. But there are other things that are structural, and one of the things that I stress about is undescended testes. Because there are men who are born with both testes, but they do not descend. And usually it is within the first period of life, the first year of life, that the testes are supposed to be descended and into the scrotal sac. But if that goes unnoticed, and I've had clients who come at 30 years old and don't have testes in the scrotal sac, the likelihood that we're going to achieve pregnancy is very low, actually. It's almost nil, because the testes need to be in the scrotal sac. So that's a structural problem that could have been corrected before a year of age. So it's very important for mothers to check, and also for people to go for proper health care of their babies to be examined early in life. So that's also a common problem. But there are also lifestyle things, habits that are causing us to have male problems. I mean, we're excessively drinking, we're excessively smoking. There's this new habit of taking shisha and bangi and mira. Yeah. And all those affect the quality of our sperm. So we're finding men who have lower numbers of sperms, and sperms that are not moving as fast, and therefore getting issues of fertility. Also occupation. Some occupations are more hazardous to our fertility than others. So people who drive long distance trucks, because of the heat of the truck that they're in, so 8 hours or so in a truck will affect the sperm quality in terms of how they move and also the number. And people who work in chemical industries, so we have the flower farms, or people who work in paint industries, also tend to have some issues with the sperm quality. So all those can affect a man.
And now to the women's side.
Yes, to the women's side, women are a bit easy, and I like their beautiful structure. So this is the structure of the uterus, and it's very simple. We have 4 things that really affect us, and one of them is our tubes. And our tubes could be blocked, and if our tubes are blocked, obviously the egg that is extracted from the ovary will not be able to pass into the tube where fertilization occurs, and the sperm will not be able to actually get there because fertilization occurs in the tube. So we need patent or open tubes. So this is one of the biggest problems in our setup. About 70% have problems with tubes. So that's one problem. For another problem is the ovary, which is the product, is where we get our ova from. So if our ovaries are not functioning properly, or we have few eggs, and that happens especially with age, so it's a caution to women. As we grow older, we get our eggs decrease in number. So that's a function of our ovaries. So if we don't have eggs, or we are not ovulating, that's also a cause of that can make us have problems conceiving. We also want a very clear uterine cavity that has nothing, because the baby implants inside the cavity. So we would need to have a clear cavity that doesn't have fibroids or polyps. So that's basically our system. And all this system is run by hormones. So we need to ensure that our hormones are balanced. The hormones come from parts of the brain and are the ones that affect ovulation. So different things that affect the hormones, like thyroid disease, diabetes, something called polycystic ovarian disease can affect the ovaries. So these are what can affect our fertility.
So drawing from your vast experience in this field, how would you describe the reactions that couples have when they learn that they're facing infertility?
The reaction is really varied. I mean, if there are clients who have had this problem for 10 years, they know that they really have a problem. So they're coming at a point where they've really come to terms with it. They just want a way forward. But there are those couples who have also come and been married for a year, been trying, and are stressed, even less than a year. And those ones are a bit, those take it harder. Those couples take it harder, and we do need a lot of counseling at that point. Some get stronger and build their relationship. Some, it gets worse and becomes a blame game. So different reactions from different couples, really.
So from what you have described, is that it can also have a psychological effect on those that are affected, and it can lead to the break or to affecting different types of relationships. So how does infertility affect the relationship, first with self, with one who has been diagnosed with infertility, and with the spouse, and also with the members of the extended family?
Okay, with self, I would say I see more women coming alone, and then maybe the husbands are roped in. So with women and men, I think infertility, because of the stigma, because of our society outlook as to a woman or a couple who don't have children, they do take it hard. And we have a lot of people who feel not worthy. And the title of a woman means that, you should give birth and procreate. So it does affect them psychologically. I've had women who've gone into depression and who've actually needed psychological and psychiatric care. So it is really, really a big burden on self, especially if you've been trying for a long time and haven't been able, or even for couples who we don't have a problem, and you don't find a problem yet they're not conceiving. I think those couples take it harder. Yeah. So it's the self-worthiness, I think, that is really affected. I think for men as well, for the couple, it brings a lot of problems, to be honest, in a couple. Some, as I've said, get closer, but some do play the blame game, where one is not talking to the other, or some people feel, okay, I can move on. Yeah. We've had separations, we've had divorces, but we've also had a lot of couples who grow stronger. And I think that's the important aspect. We try and tell... we don't always have success, and that's not possible to always have success. But through it, we want to journey with you and ensure that whatever outcome we get, you stay strong as a couple. Mm. And then for the societal outlook, or for the people around, the extended family, I don't see much of the extended family, but I hear the stories from the clients. And I think there's a lot of stigma still. I think the mother-in-laws and the sister-in-laws for the lady are the worst, to be honest. And I think we just need to be careful about how we treat the women, plus the men who are in that situation in the extended family setup. Mm. The rural women undergo it a bit more than the women in town, who are a bit more empowered. But all in all, it takes a lot. And I think I've had people who say they don't want to go for family functions, because they're looked at differently. And there's the stigma part, and there's tension at Christmas or something. So there is a lot. It's very weighty how the society and the extended family views these couples.
And on that note, infertility is not a choice. And instead of shunning away people who are battling infertility, we should actually think twice and try and embrace them and help them out. You can be part of the conversation on our Facebook page, BrandPlus TV. We will be right back.
Stress doesn't help fertility. Marriage is an institution that is guarded.
Welcome back to My Journey, and with me today is Dr. Wanjiru Ndegwa-Njuguna, who's helping us highlight fertility problems and their impact on families. So, Dr. a lot of times infertility problems become family matters, and family members may unintentionally cause pain to the couple that is battling infertility in a bid to be there for the couple. So what support can the family members offer to the couple without necessarily causing harm?
I think that's a very good question, Ng'endo, because I think I'll just, sorry to pick on the mother-in-laws and the sister-in-laws, because don't know what we're doing sometimes. If a couple has not had a child in 1-2 years, and I mean they don't, but now some people choose to stay for that time, but if you're not sure whether they're choosing or not, I mean I think some of the questions that we ask, like, oh, where is the child, where is my name, I have not been named, or touching the belly. I mean, I've had clients who say their mothers-in-law come and touch the belly and are like, hey, what's happening? I mean, I think it's unnecessary stress for these people, because they already have, as we've spoken, the self-doubt. I mean, they already have that stress of, are we going to get pregnant? Are we not? So adding on to that with a lot of questions and some persistence is not right. I think what we can do as people around them is to gently ask and be direct, I think. I mean, and if they do have a problem, then say, there are solutions, and support and be there for them, but do not prod and gossip around them, because that's what happens a lot. You don't want to ask, you're gossiping, or you're asking a question in a far space. I mean, I think it's better to be direct, and if they don't say anything, then just maybe mention that you know somebody if you do think that there is a problem, but don't overdo it, and don't shun them as well, because a lot of people are shunning them, and that's where everything goes wrong, and then the couple gets more stressed, and with stress, stress doesn't help fertility.
Well, you have mentioned something about what they're supposed to say, maybe to such a couple. So what are some of the words that family members or friends should refrain from using with regards to couples that are battling infertility?
I think it doesn't happen so much, those words, in our urban setup, but I think in the rural areas there are a lot of name calling. There's being called a barren woman, or being called a man who has no sperm, in the different traditional languages that we have. So I've heard that from clients, that you were called this name and became your name in the village. And I think that should stop, because it doesn't help anybody. They didn't choose, as we say. Nobody chose. And also the thing that people say, oh, she must have had many miscarriages, or she was using family planning, or, all those things, because that's what happens. And they get to know. And that really hurts them. So you're not helping the situation. If you want to help, guide them to the right person to help them. But never ever use such words. It does happen.
Yeah. So oftentimes infertility is diagnosed late, and this is because of assumptions made by the couple first and foremost, and also myths and misconceptions that are propagated by the members of the society. So would you kindly help us highlight and debunk these myths and misconceptions with regards to fertility problems?
Okay. I think one of the myths is that it's a woman's problem. And this is what I see a lot, that the woman comes alone. And she'll come alone for a long time before we have the man. And sometimes she has a little problem, but that may not be really the big problem, but the man never comes. And when he does come, if he comes, then we find that there's a sperm problem, but not for every couple. So I think we should stop blaming the woman. It is a couple problem. And even if we find that one of you has a more serious problem than all, it's still a couple problem. Marriage is an institution that is guarded, and it is a couple thing. So we can't say, okay, he has a problem. It's a couple problem at the end of the day, and that's what I would like to stress. Another one is that if I have my menses, then I'm fertile. Yeah. I mean, our menses can go up to 50, but that doesn't mean that we are very fertile at 48 or 50. Yeah. So I'd want women to not think that there are a lot of problems, as we've explained in the show, that can lead to infertility. So it's not about menses. So yes, you could have regular menses and they could be coming, but if you're older, then the quality of eggs is not very good, and therefore you will have infertility issues. And if you're young as well, you could be menstruating, but your tubes are blocked. So there's still a problem. Yeah. So I think that thing of, okay, I have my menses and they come every 28 days, there's no problem, is a myth. For men, the fact that they have ejaculate doesn't mean that we have semen. Yeah, we could have semen. Semen is the fluidy part, but no sperm inside it. So, and that will be ejaculated. So it's not a given that, okay, I have an ejaculate, I am okay. Yeah, it's not equal. So that's a myth, that if I have an ejaculation, then, well, I'm okay. Another myth is that we have all the time I've seen on Facebook recently someone saying that don't push me. I mean, but at the end of the day, we must balance as women. We're not fertile at 45 plus. I mean, this thing of Janet Jackson highlighting that at 50 she had a baby. I mean, our eggs are not there at 50. And so I really plead with women, don't get all caught up. I know we need to be empowered. We need to go to school. We need to get our degrees. We need to climb the ladder, the corporate ladder. But don't forget that family comes there. Because we do see women at 40 and at 50. I've even had 56 who want babies. And at that age, I'm sorry, I cannot give you your own genetic child. It will have to be a donor child. Yeah, and that then crushes your spirit. So let's do things at the right flow. There's a reason that God gave us eggs that diminish for a certain time, and we need to really understand that balance, as hard as it is.
So why is it that we're having a lot of these myths and misconceptions, given that we have a lot of advancements in the medical field?
I think people don't know, one, about fertility, and I think also people don't know the right doctors to go to as well. So it's two-pronged. Actually three-pronged if we added the money bit. So you might know, but then you hear that the cost of IVF is this, and then you're like, okay, I can't afford that. Yeah. Or you just don't know. Like the myths, I have menses and I'm okay. But I think it's a lack of knowledge largely, and a lack of going to the right people to sort out the problems.
So as you have said that, like IVF, it's one of the medical interventions which offer the much needed help and hope. So what are some of the available interventions that are available for couples battling infertility?
Okay, I will say that it's a very vast range. IVF is not the end, and that's why we have Footsteps to Fertility, because I want to stress that there's a whole range of things that we can do. And it starts from just investigating. Some people, we just need to lose a little weight. And we're done. We have had couples who have after investigations, there's no problem, there's just a problem ovulating, and we lose 10 kilos and you come back pregnant. When you've been struggling for 3 to 4 years. We didn't do IVF, we did weight loss and helped some ways. There are some who are not ovulating, and for those people, we put them on some drugs to help them ovulate. And you can get pregnant just like that. There are some people who have thyroid issues or some hormonal issues, and we give you treatment, and that is sorted out. There are also people who then need more interventions like an IUI, which means that we assist to put the sperm closer for men who have low sperm counts or low motility, that they're not moving as fast. And that also helps. And then there's the IVF. The IVF is like the last resort, and or for some people who have blocked tubes or low sperm count, it's the only way. And for that, yes, it is a more technical bit where it's a process of about 15 to 20 days where it's a bit more intensive. But there's a whole range of solutions. But we'll only know what is best for you if you get checked and if you are seen, really.
So how is the uptake of these treatment options on both men and women?
I think the barriers to uptake would really be, one, the knowledge and the money. Fertility treatments are expensive, and I'm not going to lie about it. The drugs cost a lot of money. The setup of an IVF center costs a lot of money, and the machinery and the expertise of the staff is very expensive. So we will, I mean, that is one of the barriers, because when I tell you that IVF costs this, I mean, if your salary is at a certain level, you're not going to be able to afford that, and that's the biggest barrier to uptake. But there are also people who have religious views that are not in line with IVF and such treatments, and we understand that, because to each their own, really. Yeah? If you're not convicted that that's for you, then we're fine with that. There are choices like adoption that you could go through. So, I mean, I think those are the barriers to uptake. But I think for men and women, it's equal. Some men are resistant, some women are resistant, so it's equal.
So how does the uptake of the treatment options or resistance to it affect the relationships, the couple's relationship?
I think that's a very tricky area, because if you come in and we are not able to afford, then now also sometimes it's a blame game, or sometimes where we need the man to come in to give the sample, it becomes an issue. We've had sometimes some patients have been stood up. We've gone through the whole treatment, but the man doesn't come to actually give the sample. And I think that's heartbreaking because you've put your heart and soul, you've come to the clinic for injections, and then at the end, somebody doesn't do his part. So that's really heartbreaking, and there's instances like that. So it does affect the couple in that way. I've seen separation and divorce, and it's just, I think the counseling bit must be really tighter, and we must, but we can't, we don't know who will not come, so sometimes it's unavoidable.
So, and on that note, I think it's time that couples acknowledge that it's a couple thing and that they should be there for each other. We're now going to take a short break, which allows you to send in your questions and comments on the number on your screen. We will be right back.
Sex is an integral part of marriage. No treatment is 100%.
Welcome back to My Journey, and we are tackling fertility problems and their impact on families. So while medical interventions offer much needed help and hope to families, it also adds a bit of anxiety and stress to the couple. So one of the most impacted aspects is sex. So why is this so?
I think sex is an integral part of marriage, obviously, and its real cause, was to procreate. One of the reasons that we do have intercourse is to procreate. So if we are having intercourse and we're not procreating and we are now doing treatments, it just becomes a bit of a mess. And I think the mechanical bit, it becomes more mechanical. It becomes like a routine thing. It becomes on the clock. We have been told this is the day we're ovulating. And there's a lot of pressure on both the female and the male at that point. And it can really affect the sexual life, really.
And one thing that you have mentioned is that we've been told this is the day, this is the time. Like a quote I was reading, you're asked what day is it, and one says it's ovulation day instead of saying maybe it's the 15th or the 16th. So it becomes a routine when it comes to in an event to try and receive children.
It does, and the apps that we have don't help. And sometimes I tell patients, just throw those apps away, just enjoy life, because it does become mechanical, and then it takes away the fun, really.
So how can couples ensure that they still maintain a healthy and a positive outlook on their sex lives, even during fertility treatment?
It's easier said than done, what I'll say, but I ask them to de-stress. I think we have enough stress, especially people working in the urban centers. You go to work, it's a mad life, it's a rat race, really. I think I ask them to de-stress, and sometimes it helps. Go for holiday, just relax, don't think about pregnant, and some couples actually come back pregnant. So you do find that stress does affect your fertility, so the most important thing is to de-stress. I also ask some people to go through counseling and with our psychologist. And it doesn't mean that we are cuckoos or mad. It really doesn't. It just means you need some outlet to talk and to get your frustrations through. And it tends to help them, and it feels better, and to rebond as a couple. Also to spend time, do things that you did when you were dating. Spend more time, go to the movies, go for a game. I don't know what other things. Go for an ice cream date as opposed to go for a coffee date. Do things that you used to do when you're dating, just to get that connection back. And that tends to help sometimes.
Speaking of treatment failure may cause grieving and stress to the couple. So what support can medical practitioners offer to this couple so that it does not strain their relationship further?
Yeah, I think the counseling to begin with before you go for a treatment by the doctor should be very thorough, because investigations should be done, and with that we should kind of tell you your chances. No treatment is 100%. So, I mean, that's one of the things I like to stress. And that God gives babies. We don't give babies here. We try and help, but at the end of the day, they're God-given. So that's one of the things that I try to stress even throughout the period, that we're doing this, we're doing our best, but it could go this way, it could go that way, because people have a lot of hope, especially with IVF. You know, it's going to happen. Sometimes it doesn't, and it crashes your world afterwards. And we want you to be okay. So that counseling is extremely important, but also we do ask you to see a psychologist. And we started stressing it, because the psychologist, I can assist, but she knows what to trigger, she knows what questions to ask, she knows how to say things right, so that at the end of the day, it's easier. And also, we try and bring hope. Just one treatment doesn't always work. The first one might not work. We've had successful treatments at treatment 9. And these are people who persisted, and you know, sometimes you don't even want to see them. You hear they have booked an appointment, you're like, okay, do I say I'm not in? Yeah. Because of the despair and because it doesn't work, and we really want babies. So I think there is hope. To give hope is the most important thing. And as long as we see that things are going well, we will give you hope, because we are not the givers of the baby. Yeah. So I think seeing a psychologist and keeping up the hope and being persistent are extremely important things.
So what does the Footsteps to Fertility Centre offer in terms of fertility problems and the impact on families?
Okay, we do the whole range of treatments, but as much as that, we want to work with you. So we try as much as possible to give you personalized care. You're not going to come in here and just be any other number. We look into your problem, we do thorough checkup, a history taking, and we do a thorough examination and checkup of investigation. So we pinpoint to your problem, and I'm very keen on giving you numbers. So if your chance is 5%, you will know by the end of that, so that we're not giving you this false impression that it's going to work. And we give you the option, all options, including adoption. Because there's some where the chances are low. I can see the money is not enough. You're going to get stressed financially. It might not work. And at the end of the day, am I going to cause you more problem than good? So we do look at you in a personalized kind of way. We also give counseling sessions. We have a psychologist who is on board, who talks to you and takes you through this. But we do really want to work with you. And at the end of your journey, whether it's with a beautiful baby or without, or an adopted baby, we want to be here for you, really.
So how can one access your services?
You just come to our clinic, really, which we are located on Ralph Bunch Road, next to Upper Hill Medical Center. And we have a Facebook page. We have an online presence in terms of our website. So you can always go to those websites and get our numbers and book an appointment.
So what is next for Dr. Wanjiru Ndegwa-Njuguna and the Footsteps Fertility Centre?
I think when you follow your passion, it's a beautiful thing. I think the next step, I don't know what is next. I can't tell you what is next. I just know that in 10 to 20 years, I want to be blessed enough to have lots of babies under our wings, to have numbers and numbers of babies who say, you know, this, or couples who say this is where we got our help, because that's the point, that we want to help you. We want you to have your babies and to have families and grow your families and just be comfortable in life, really. So that's our dream.
And indeed you will, and I wish you all the best. Don't let infertility break you and your family, no matter how hard it gets. That has been my journey. I have been your host, Ng'endo Mwangi. Until next time, remember, don't let your struggle become your identity. Keep watching BrandPlus TV.